Okay, welcome back to session 4, CE 120B, 220B. Today we are going to go ahead and continue with thinking about just how you get started with designing a building size and how some of the space planning and building layout and circulation issues all sort of work together. And today's kind of a day where we transition a little bit. I realized that last time we were talking very conceptually. A whole lot of things were just ideas about how you might lay out a building. We didn't actually spend much time in Ribbit or in a modeling tool realizing all that. Today we're actually going to take a lot of those ideas and show you how you can implement them and test them and explore them in the modeling tools to kind of just work dynamically. But there's always kind of a little bit of a cycle to it all in terms of often it helps to start by sketching, get some of your ideas out very quickly because you're very exploratory and playful when you're sketching. As soon as you get into modeling tools, there's this tendency to sort of just clinch up a little bit and be a little hesitant about moving things around. So I think it's actually a little bit of a cycle. So even after you go through and do some of your initial things within Revit, I'm going to highly encourage you not to be too wed to things at the beginning. And just as we meet and start to talk about things and we start sketching lines and moving things around, just not worry about being incredibly precise. In fact, I think that's really a high-level way of looking at the whole process we're about to go through. Is that we're on the beginning of this journey where right now we'll make some initial design gestures, but there's a large variance and flexibility in what's going on. And as we keep on going, it'll get narrower. But for right now, although we put things down that look very literal, don't think of them as being very literal because we really don't have a whole lot of basis to understand why it's here versus 6 inches from there versus 5 feet from there. We're just going to try and get some big design decisions down to help us start with our analysis. Okay. Thinking ahead to the whole notion of your design project, whether it's the exhibition center or another one, what we're going to try and do is, through this weekend, really kind of get to the point where, hopefully, you have some initial ideas down about not only what some of your design inspirations are and some of the big ideas that you want to try to accomplish in your building might need, but also some of your initial ideas about what that shape and form might look like, some initial sketching. So what we like to do in preparation for the first check-in on the project is really just go through and start capturing some of your ideas about these issues. And that could show up in a Revit model, or that could show up in a lot of other forms. Some people prefer to work in SketchUp, or they prefer to sketch things out on paper. Whatever form works well for you. It's just really, there's nothing hard and fast as we go through this about where you have to be at any particular point in time. Let me kind of point out some things just about the logistics of the class, just to kind of get you going. If I go on over to the Canvas website, we've actually tried to start filling in some of the information there. Let me see if I can get that to come up. For Canvas today, I don't have any new files for you, but I do want to show you where some things are located on the site. Let's see, am I there? Is it there? Can you see Canvas? Let's start with that. No, it's interesting. There may be something weird going on in the university systems.
It just came up.
I don't know. Could just something in general. How are people doing in general with the internet? Can you get to other things? Can you get to Google and stuff like that? Google seems to be up. Not sure why Canvas isn't showing up. Well, when we get to Canvas, I'll show you that basically we have assignments listed for each of the different weeks. And what's listed as the assignment is just sort of the approximate focus of what your design journal entry should be. Just a kind of indication of where you should be on the journey as we go moving through things. And you'll see that it actually just sort of moves through a week at a time, adding a little more detail, a little more system to it. So hopefully I'll come back in a little bit. Again, what we're starting with is really all about these big ideas, the building layout and form. Okay, we're trying to capture that. But let me show you how we actually are going to go through and capture that. So as you go through and you work, the idea is that ultimately you're going to be maintaining this design journal, this kind of document of your history through the project and what it looks like on a Canvas. Let me go on over there. It did come up. Okay, so if I go over to the B class, you'll see under the assignments, there's a whole listing of different things that we'll go moving on through. Everything from the big ideas in the building layout, point where some of the high-level design decisions are relatively complete, so I'll call it preliminary design complete. That's where you pretty much want to know where the walls and the core and the stairways are going to be, because as we keep on going and add more and more systems, if those things are moving around radically, it'll just be very hard. You're going to be kind of, doing a lot of engineering on a moving target. So for these first few weeks, it's really all about just getting the building, the basic form in shape, so that we can then start adding the individual details of the systems to it. But the idea is for each of these, what we're going to do is do two things. You're going to go ahead and post the design journal entry, which I'll show you in just a second. You're also going to set up an appointment to meet with us, where us is myself and Alana and Angad, and we're going to post some times through Canvas, so you get a message saying, please sign up for one of the available times. Okay, and at that time, it's pretty much just bring work in progress, and we're all just going to sketch on it together. It's never graded. It's really more that you'd have stuff to show, and it's a good productive conversation and stuff like that. Because as we do all this stuff, we'll generate a lot of ideas of which you are welcome to use 10 or 20% and reject the other 80%, or use, just as the case may be. But it's always, we'll throw a lot of stuff at you just as possibilities, and then you as professionals have to figure out like what you're going to incorporate and what you're going to reject, stuff like that. In fact, I should comment about that in general as I keep on rolling out all these different tools throughout this course. I'm going to show you a lot of different things you can do with Revit and all these different modeling tools, and there's no requirement that you use all of them. You probably use some of them, maybe a lot of them, but you don't have to do everything I do in terms of on your building. It's really, I want to give you lots of information, lots of choices, and then you can sort of figure out which are the ones you want to apply to your own design process. Okay, so we have some check-ins there. Let's go off and show you where the design journals live. If I go over to BIMtopia, so at bimtopia.com, and we'll log back out there for a second. Back over here. Okay, so in general, this is the site where a lot of the stuff for the class lives. You will find out here on the site different things about these class sessions. What I try to do is actually post everything that's also on Canvas out here, so all the different class sessions. There's links to not only like the YouTube recordings, I try to put all the handouts out here and the mind maps too, and as well as a link to student design journals. Right now, there's nothing in the student design journals for winter 2016. If I go back to fall, you'll actually find there's a lot of information out here. We've sort of looked at this before in terms of all these different entries. And the idea is you're going to start adding entries to all this. So how this works is under the design journals menu item, you'll find not only a way to go out and visit past design journals, so please do go ahead and take a look at winter, fall, the prior spring, even last winter. You'll find a lot of good information about some of the past classes and what people have done. Okay? But if you say login, you get to a screen that looks like this. You will go through and create for yourself your own username and password. That'll send me an email message that we can approve, and you'll get a message back that says, oh, click this to confirm that it is your proper email address. One of those sort of registration systems. When you get all done, in fact, you can do that now if you want to, you'll be able to sign in, give it your password. You can say remember me, but it never seems to. Probably something about the way my browser is set up. Okay. And now under the menu choice, hang on, it should be there. Not there. Let me see what's going on. Is it still updating itself? Tried to put this all back together again yesterday, so let's see if it's working. There's my journal entries. My journal entries, if you go to that, will show you anything that you've already submitted. So far I haven't submitted anything under this name just yet. So when you want to go through and submit something, it's actually like just a web-based form you fill out. What you got to do is say add an item. You can add an article. Okay, and there's a lot of different fields here for us to fill out. Let me go ahead and see if I can figure out, I wish the fields were a little more obvious about where they were in here. They're kind of generally over there. Okay, your article should have a title, so that'll be something like, oh, cats. Actually, I didn't do that. It's just Design Journal 1. Okay. For a subtitle, what I always like to do there is go through, and since we have a lot of people blogging in different sort of sections, go ahead and put in the class number and your name there. That way, just in a scrolling list, it shows up whose article it was. So it's going to be 220B, and I usually just put link cats in there. Okay. Now you have basically a text field. So this is a text field for adding lots of interesting stuff about my building design. Okay, it's pretty much just a text field. I'll set that up. It looks like it's a little goofy now in terms of it doesn't have bolding and all that kind of stuff in there. So just go ahead and treat it as text. We're sort of putting in HTML text right now. If you want to go through and put some images in here, you can click the little image button. Go on out there and either find things, that are already out there. Actually, this interface is not quite right. I'll just go ahead, these are already ones that are sort of sitting out there. But I'm looking for the right places where we can upload other images. Actually, for the media down here, I know I can do some images over here. I can say, that's the selected images. This interface just changed around on me, so I have to sort of figure out where it is. The buttons look different than they used to be. Oh, you click the search button. What a strange way to do it. Okay, for the images, basically what's happening. Images sort of exist in different categories. The list view preview is, have you noticed that in most blogs, there's a little thing that looks like a thumbnail that's up in the upper left-hand corner when you're scrolling down the list? That's the list image preview. So if you go through and grab an image for that, what it's going to do is, let me go ahead and grab something out there. I don't have any good building images kind of hanging around here, so I'm just going to go through and grab some stuff from my local hard disk. I'll grab my little image. Kind of right there. Okay, there could be movies in here. We're going to eventually start putting in links to live models, which are stored on another system. We can actually have that. But in terms of different images that you want to embed within your text, you can go through and just search for whatever else you want in here. So in here, again, I'll just go on out. I'll find some other image. Great, I'll find a third image. But go through and as a starting point, just go through and give yourself like different combinations of text and images. Although I'll work on this with this little editor's a little bit better looking because it really should be a little bit better looking. It's the editor's missing some features where you boldface and all that kind of stuff. Okay. After you go through and kind of write up what you want and sort of embed some images, there's a couple of things you need to do to associate it with you. A, you need to go through and kind of associate it with your name. B, it's also good to go through and associate it with the class. That way we find it either way. So how you would do that is, for example, if I was saying Chai, I'd choose that. And also, let me go down and get winter right there. So I'm going to command click to get them both. Okay, so now it'll be tagged in those two different categories. It'll show up both ways. Okay, at the tail end of all this, you get to say whether you're ready to publish it or not. If you are ready, as opposed to just drafting it, say yes, and you can submit the item. Cross your fingers. Thank you for your submission. There's something out there. So where does it exist? If now you go to winter 2016, here's my design journal entry. Not much more to it. What a lovely picture. Okay, some different pictures that are kind of hanging around in there, some text that's hanging around in there. That's my journal entry if I want to edit it. What's going on? That form's a little goofy right now. I'll get that fixed for you. Let me try editing it the other way. Under design journal over here. Let's see if I edit it on this side. There we go. It gets back to this. So you can start to sort of see what it is. So just go ahead and play around with it in terms of just dumping stuff in there. I'll work on the interface. It's got a little bit of a homegrown system, and it looks like it has some bugs in it still. But start with just kind of getting some stuff out there, and that's all there is to doing design journal entries. It's just put it out there, and again, read things people put there in the past, because it really is just kind of stream of consciousness. Yeah, we want it to be a journey. It's not necessarily the completed entry. You'll do that later in the quarter in terms of what's going on. Super. So go ahead and save your stuff out there. That's the design journal. So post, text, images. If you have some models, we can go through and post those. You register for an account, you log in, and you add in an entry or you edit it. So, not too bad. Let's kind of go through the other piece of this, though. Let's get that set up as long as we're in here, too. Let's go over to the other place you need to know about, and that is this. It's the A360 side. It's called Stanford Ribbit.autodesk360.com. And I hadn't done it before, but let's do it now. We'll set up the account just for you guys. I'll go ahead and log myself in. Okay, you will log in using your Autodesk ID. Okay, and in using your Autodesk ID, you will have access to different things. Let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to create, you say I have these different sort of folders where we gather things for different classes. Let's go ahead, I'm going to create a folder for our stuff that we're going to put here, our full models in now. I'll create a new project. You don't have to do this because I'll do it, get us our project started. Stanford, CEE 120B, 220B, let me say winter 2016. What do we want? I'll go for the little yellow guy. It's creating it right there. Okay, no data is in there just yet. We can create a couple new folders. So for example, what I tend to do is actually create folders just to have people's names on them. That makes it sort of easy to find things. Go ahead and create your own folder in there for stashing your own things. But actually, I'll give you permission to that so you can get to that, and we'll get going there. Okay, next thing I want to do is actually add you as members to the site. That gives you full privileges, so you can do all this fun stuff. So let me go over and see if we can do that. Admin, manage, and let's see who we have here. Some of you I think are probably already still in here, because Sengchai is probably still in there. Yep, you're in there already. Let's see, I think most of the people who are in A are already in there. Brittany, are you in there? Excellent. Gustavo, you're in there. Let's see, Jack and Q. I'm going to CQ. Do I not have you? Or it's your other name, right? What's your other name? Say again? T what Z? SZ. Yeah. There you are. Okay, excellent. And do I have you? I'm not sure I have you yet in this system.
I don't think I have.
If not, let's add you. It is so easy. Go ahead, and do you have an Autodesk ID? Do you have like one of those ones that you use when you sign up for software and download it?
I was trying to do this.
Here, what you got?
I'm not really sure. I just tried signing up, but I don't think it's working.
Okay, no worries. Whoosh, we just sent an invite to Stanford Ribbit Hub.
I think you might have to approve it.
Oh, let's do it that way.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
Let's check it out. Okay. There's two ways to skin this, right? Over here. That's the one there. Hang on. Where am I? Let me go back out. It thinks I'm the administrator. Let me go back over here again. It doesn't see it yet. Let me go and do it the other way. I'll invite you back. Yeah, some way, one way or the other, we're going to get to this. Okay, so What is your email address?
Does it have to be a Stanford one?
Oh no, it's whatever one is your Autodesk ID one.
Okay, sure. It's
CJUN
Stanford.
at stanford.edu.
Mm-hmm.
And is it Christine?
And last name John, J-U-N.
Got it. Okay, you should be getting an email message that you should accept.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Thank you. Okay, so great. We have these folders. We're doing fantastic. When it comes time to actually go through and share something, because you actually have a model that you want to share with someone, go drop it into your folder. You'll say, hey, I would like to upload something, and you can upload a file. Let's see what I got out there. Let's go to 220B. And I have some sample files floating around out here. Session 1. Those are pretty boring ones. What do I want? I'm just going to go out and grab a Revit file. Actually, I'll do this. I'll go out to my just Barrington projects. Hang on just a second. What was I working on lately? I was working on a file over here. Choose that. Say open. It'll upload the file. Once it uploads the file, there's a couple of good things that happen about the file. It goes through and saves it out there. It's going to make a little preview of the file, and we can all share it. The cool things about the previews that are shared here is we can all get to it and even look at the file. We can download it, but we can also look at it without having to download the file just in a web browser. So it's really very cool. Your TAs will love this because it's actually a very good way of getting access to your things. When your file is out here, you can share it. It's still busy. Try that again. Sorry, the operation could not be performed. I think it's because it's still uploading or doing something on it right now. Let me go out to another file and show you what I was going to do. I'll go back up to home. I'll say, where is my GLCats examples? Okay. When you put that file out there, this happens to it. You can say, let's open it. Get on out there. Take a look at the file. Hopefully. There we go. We can do a little spinning around. If you like, you can go navigating through it. That's why we kind of like this. Yes, I get the message. Come over here. And once you're in, you can actually start looking around. Going a little bit further. How do I spin this around? I always have to remember in these things. That's zooming in and out. That wants to be the camera interactions. I want to do this. I guess that's roll. Check that out. That's going to roll the camera that way. That's not what I want. I'm getting very dizzy now. What I want to do is go on in. Too far in. You might notice it's actually sort of a very high quality rendering, which is not too bad. Jeez Louise. Okay. And in here, what do I want to do? I'll try with my mouse. That's orbiting. Jeez, I'm making myself awfully dizzy right now. I don't want to roll, I want to just look, and I'm looking for whatever they hit, where have they hidden that now? That's fit to view, that's the focal length, that's panning, that's where they're orbiting, what's that? How do I just do a simple look? Still orbiting. I don't know, anyone else playing around and seeing how you can do that? It's one of those things that's when it's so incredibly simple that it's kind of one of the things where it's an absence of doing something as opposed to doing something. Pop back out again. I'm so far in now, it's confusing. Okay, let's go back out. The orbit. I just want to adjust my camera. It's still stuck in the orbit tool. That's pan, I get pan. It's still drawing. I roll up and down that zooming. That's back to orbiting. I don't know, I'll find it. It's like one of those things where it's so incredibly obvious I'm missing it right now. There's a way to pan around in there like you do in Vim 360. Anyways, you take your models out here. You go through, you can explode your model if you like to. If you want to sort of see inside the model. So you can start to understand how your building's all put together. But enough of all that. What you want to do at the tail end of all this is after you put your model out there is go through and share your model. And again, that happens up in here. You can say share. If you say share, we can basically grab a link. This link right here, that's the magic link, that one that says a360.co, all the letters and numbers after it. You can copy that and you email that to me, or you put that in the design journal that I can get to the same model at exactly the same location. So that's what we're trying to get to. So that's what I mean by sharing your models. Okay, and somehow Alana is going to figure out how you spin around in there, because it's incredibly easy and obvious, but I don't remember what you're doing. It's like, you know you have these tools. I want it to be under that menu choice, but I'm not going to keep on belaboring it, because I'll just continue to mess it up. Okay, so we're going to go over to here. Enough of posting all that. Let's talk about space planning and building layout and how you actually use these tools to do these things. Okay, the idea is we've talked a lot about the concepts and requirements, and there's all these different things that were sort of helpful for getting started. Starting with a design program. Out of the design program, trying to come up with a budget plan, trying to figure out approximately how the areas are, need to be allocated to fit within your total area budget that's available. Then there's this whole notion of how you group things. We talked about grouping them by privacy, grouping them by desired proximity, even grouping them by different functional uses or loads that you put on the mechanical systems, things like that. And there's some very specific requirements that for all these different spaces, code requires that we sort of consider a certain number of occupants based on how the room is being used. Super. Okay. How that actually starts to translate down into what you can do in Revit can happen in a couple of different ways. There's a procedure that you can use called using mass blocks, which I kind of like, but I have to confess sometimes it sort of confuses the issue. It's sort of, if you like the idea of stacking Lego, it's very similar to that. Okay, so if you like the idea of stacking blocks, it's a good way to approach it. However, very quickly we move from mass blocks, because mass blocks don't have any real meaning. They are just sort of conceptual shapes and boundaries, to actually working with real Revit spaces. And that's where it gets sort of very hard and fast and very informative in terms of what we can get out of it. So I want to look at both those methods just to sort of give you a sense of what's available to you. Again, you can use whichever one. You'll probably ultimately end up using Revit spaces, but if mass blocks help you get started, use them. Don't feel obligated to use them. So here's what we're going to start with. We're going to start by basically, setting a project location and some levels. It's very important always just to get going with where is this building going to be located, and some things like the floor-to-floor levels. It's kind of very helpful to sort of lay some of that out. So let's start with that and then think about how we can use mass blocks. Mass blocks are going to be good for just sort of approximating the sizes and figuring out the stacking and the relationship between different things. So let's go over to Revit and see if we can make that work. So I'm going to go over to Revit. Oh, don't do that. Let me go ahead and close that up. I was working on some stuff before I joined you. I'm going to go out and say open and cancel out of that. I'm going to go out to, what is it? It is session 3's folder, because in session 3 I actually loaded these things up there. If you downloaded things from session 3 last time, you'll have what I'm after. Under space planning, you're going to find mass blocks for state-based planning and then a block. Okay, so there's a project that has those things. Okay, and then there's an individual block, which is just a Revit family. I'm just going to give you a sense of what we're after. The idea is we would like to go through and just simulate the effect of having little Lego blocks on the screen. To do that, what we've created is a bunch of different little shapes. These shapes are all masses right now, and the ones that I'm looking at right now are kind of squarish. Yours may not be squarish. Okay, because they are masses, always watch out. There's this thing where when you open up things with masses, often you don't see anything, okay, because masses are typically hidden. If you go visibility graphics, so under view, visibility graphics, and turn on masses, you'll be able to see them. You zoom out, ZF to fit. Okay, so there's just some little blocks. And the way I sort of envision using these blocks is really just to give you a sense of, almost what you're going to do on paper sketching them, being able to kind of aggregate things together by using these blocks. Let me show you what I have in mind. So I have these little blocks, and each of these little blocks has a size to it. See if I can even edit the type. I don't think I can, because these are all just, nope. These are currently just set by size. Okay, so what you can do as you're thinking about your mass blocks is going through and just creating little masses. So if you want to create little masses, let's start with, actually, let me start with the whole thing of the location and the floor heights first. Location. For the location for this, currently it's set to Boston, Massachusetts. If I don't want to be set in Boston, I want to set it someplace else, like Portland, Oregon. I decided to work with today. I can look at that. That'll give me the sun, the weather profiles, things like that. The other thing I tend to have to watch out for is just really what the floor-to-floor heights are. And you'll see by default, Revit often starts with 10 feet as the floor-to-floor height. What we're going to learn as we're doing our commercial buildings or buildings that are non-residential, it tends to be helpful to have a little more space between the floors to allow room for all the structure and the mechanical and all that stuff. With 10 feet, you really don't have enough room to get everything in that you'd like to. So things more on the order of 13, 14, 15 feet are probably more typical of kind of good starting point assumptions. So what I'll do here is I'll just start this out. I'm going to put in 14 feet as my floor-to-floor height. And then even I'll add a second level. I have level 1, level 2. If I wanted to consider that it would be actually a third level or even a roof level, I could go through and add another level to it. So these just always get started by setting up, this is what I'll call just your framework. You want to get this stuff squared away. Put another 14 feet in here. Okay, so now I have 3 levels to work with. Just helpful to get going with. Okay, once you have this, you can, that's a very tightly kind of scale drawing. Let me kind of pull that back out a little bit to more like 1/4 inch equals a foot, something like that. I can start drawing things on level 1. And if I wanted to start thinking about masses and blocks, what I'll do is I'll start with massing. Even in this view, I'll have to visibility graphics, turn on the masses. That's a view by view setting. You'll see there's some existing ones out there already. If I want to create a new block, I can say in place mass. I can give it a shape. So if I want, oh, I decided that this classroom was going to be somewhere around 25 by 40, something like that. So I can pull out a nice shape in here. What I can do is create a form out of it. And let's look at this in 3D. So what I want to do is choose that top part. If it's a single story tall, that'd be a 14-foot tall space. I grab that surface, I can make that about 40 away from the others. If I want to grab that space over here, I can make that around 25. Super. So I got what I consider to be a little Lego building block. Once I have my little Lego building blocks, the idea is if I want to start thinking about aggregating things together, I could copy and kind of create some more little Lego building blocks. And the idea is there's nothing hard and fast and kind of permanent about this. It's just sort of an exercise of really quickly throwing down some blocks so you sort of get a sense of, okay, if I was tying the rooms together, how much space would they take? And as I go through and model the individual spaces that I have, as part of my program, I can leave out the spaces where the halls are and the atriums and the stairs and stuff like that. I'm just trying to get a sense of how it's all going to aggregate together as I move from just that sort of bubble diagram into something that looks a little bit more like kind of spaces. Now, these different spaces over here, okay, can have floor area. They can go ahead and have functionality to them, and that's where the color kind of comes in. Let's talk about how you get some of that. Oh, if you want to think about things that are 2 stories, again, not to worry. You can go through and grab something like that. I'll just copy it. I'll copy from there and see if I can pull it up to there. Did I get it right? Not quite. See, 3D is very deceiving. So maybe a better way to do that would have been my ever popular copy to the clipboard, then paste it up to the 2nd floor. Many of you know that's one of my favorite things to do. Okay, so I got some different spaces there. If I want to think of those as not just being kind of blobs, but actually having floor area, what I do is I select them and I turn on something called mass floors. Because masses are masses, but they don't have any floor area. If I turn on the floor levels that they intersect with, okay, that'll actually go through. Let's see if I can shade this for you. Yeah, see that has a little purple down there. That's going to indicate that this now actually has a floor area. It has a gross floor area of 1,000 square feet. That one next door doesn't have a gross area of 1,000 square feet. It's the shape, but it doesn't have any floor area to it yet. So what I have to do is just turn on the floor area. Super. Over here, same thing. I'll turn on the floor area. Now, if I want to think about something being a 2-story space, not to worry, I can go through and grab one of my blocks and sort of stretch it up. That's kind of a 2-story space, which is more like an open atrium or something like that. Okay. If I want to break that so it also has floor area at the second level, then I put a mass floor in there. And you can control like which things have multiple floor levels, which don't. For example, here I can copy that. I'll paste it up to level 2. So now I have sort of a 2-story space next to my multi-height space. So 2 different individual levels versus a multi-height. Okay? And by doing this, you can start aggregating information because these spaces, these masses, can actually go through be scheduled, and you can get a schedule of really how much space you've created. Hopefully it'll look pretty much like your space and planning schedule. Okay, so what that looks like is if you would like to go through and schedule these things, I can say, oh, under view, let's go through and create a schedule. I'm going to schedule my, under masses, okay, and then I can choose what I want. I can say, oh, if they have a name or number, anything like that. Does it have an ID? It doesn't have a name even. It does have a floor area. Go ahead and add that in there. I'm going to put another field in there called occupancy. We'll talk about that in a second. Okay. So I have some different spaces that were already out there that have some occupancies. I have these new spaces over there. They don't really have an occupancy assigned to them just yet because we just created them. If I want to go through and create an occupancy for those, that's a field that I added in. I can say that I want that to be a classroom space. This could be a classroom space over here. Maybe this one over here is an office space. And that other one's an exhibition space. The idea of working with this, though, although I spelled exhibition wrong, I think incorrectly there. So, there we go. Is that we could start scheduling and aggregating these things together. So, for example, if I wanted to go through and subtotal all this, I can do that just as far as Revit scheduling. Let me go ahead and do a little sorting. I'm going to sort these based on their occupancy and put a footer in there, a little grand total in there. And then in terms of what to subtotal, let me go through and choose the field gross floor area. So I can see that right now I have about 26,000 square feet in these different categories. So again, this is just really to help you do your bookkeeping and kind of keep track of what you've created. The reason we tend to like these is, let me go ahead and view tile the windows. So I'll turn some things off over here, so we can see more. And one more out of there. Not quite. Okay, the reason I like to go ahead and kind of do something like this is if I tile them together, let me again say WT, which is window tile. I think. There we go. Is, oh, what can I do? As I need to go through and adjust things, if I'm too heavy in a specific area, what I can do is again just start pushing and pulling. And as I push and pull, what should happen is the total over here is adjusting and kind of keeping track of what's going on in the different areas. So it's just sort of a little dynamic system that pulls it all together. If you want to go through and try and layer some more information in here, assign, we've assigned an occupancy to each of these different spaces, we can go through and show some values for what the load is, what the amount of, or the number of people per, well, actually, it's the number of square foot per person, and divide that through together and compute the total number of people. Okay, but I'm actually going to show you a better way to do that just a little bit. So you can go ahead and do it in here. The other thing that people tend to like to do with these diagrams is, you might notice that over here in this diagram, there's a little bit of color coding in there, and that's kind of nice. Okay, so in the same way that we put color fill legends in the floors, we can go through and color code our masses just based upon what their occupancy is. And that might help you do a nice little 3D stacking diagram. How we do that is in the view, I'll go visibility graphics, we've set up some different filters. And these filters right now are just set up so that based upon what the occupancy is, okay, it's just overriding things with a different color. So everything that's red right now is an assembly space, the greens are the office spaces. If I want to change that, I want to make the office spaces purple. I can do that. Okay. Or if I want to color code the spaces, some of the other spaces, and give them a color too. Let's add another filter so you can sort of get another kind of layer of color in here. And how you can do that is you say add a filter. I create a new filter. I'm going to actually just take one of the old ones and duplicate it because the old ones are actually really pretty good the way they are. Say, hey, let's go ahead and say this is going to be occupancy equals classroom. So that's just a name. It's going to look to see, are there any masses? Masses is the category. And is it the occupancy equals, and you can see the different values that are here. So I'll say classroom. So that's just creating a new filter that I can add. Okay, if I have that, now I can go through and assign a color to it. I'll make them bright orange with a solid color pattern. Okay, again, just a way of doing it. So if you like the idea of stacking Lego and you think it'd be useful to sort of explore it in 3D, go for it. Okay, don't feel like you have to. The advantage of doing this, or what I sort of like about doing it, is that we can go ahead and approximate the sizes, we can sort of figure out the stacking and the relationships, and we can even kind of color code and sort of give apply filters. That might be really useful if you're trying to explain to me real quickly how your building lays out and the office spaces are on top of the exhibition spaces. It's really easy to see that 3D diagram and see the colors. Yeah, not much detail at all, but I sort of get the overall big level. We can tabulate. The third use, though, is we can actually use them as placement guides. Now, this is where I want to caution you, because this is where you may or may not want to go to this level. But within massing, I think we showed you this in A, you can go through, okay, and use those as surfaces to actually place real walls. So I've done some massing here. I have some things that are all sort of set up. They're looking pretty good. If I want to, I can say massing in sight and place a wall just on that. So choose a wall type and place it right on that surface. So I'm creating Revit forms now as opposed to masses. Now, I show you that because on the one hand that's very handy. I want to caution you though, don't start getting to be enslaved by that. Because for example here, I probably want one big wall that's going to be the entire side of the building, even though the stacks are kind of there, right? You know, so don't worry about sort of reforming what is it? The stack. You can go ahead and just because they're walls and they're real Revit walls, you can just do what you need to. Yeah, independent of what's going on with the mass. So use the masses for what they're good for, but don't feel bound by them. Yeah. What you don't want to do is, the masses are sort of a generative tool. After you've sort of advanced your thinking, and in the end, you even figured out, that wall is not going to be here at all. That wall is actually going to be, someplace else, or it's going to, bend off. It's going to go over here, do that, whatever is going on with your walls. Okay. Don't feel like you need to go back and adjust the masses. The masses are really a generative tool. Let them be that, but don't feel like you have to maintain them. Only to the extent they're useful to you. Okay, so that's my little shtick about stacking masses. Kind of makes sense? Okay, again, do it if it's comfortable. Don't feel like you have to do it. Okay, I see a no over there. Okay, so let's go back and think about it the other way. So using mass blocks is a great way of starting. Another way to do, though, is to use Revit spaces. And this is something we didn't do in the past, but I've kind of fallen in love with as a way of doing it. And Revit spaces are a great analytical tool that typically get used for doing HVAC calculations. Because when we think about spaces, often we're thinking about enclosed volumes that have a certain occupancy, and based on the use and occupancy, we can figure out the number of people and the heat load and all that kind of stuff. But they're actually really useful for even doing our preliminary planning too. So I'm going to sort of show you how we can kind of create some very quick spaces, use some space separators to break them up, set the occupancies, and create a space schedule, which is actually very informative for what we need. So let's kind of show you what I mean by that. We're going to go back over to Revit. I'm going to open up a new project. And I'll just use the architectural template for now. But we're going to think about creating a very simple building. And as we're creating this sort of simple building, I'm not going to worry about every precise inch. As long as I have the walls within 2 feet of where they belong, I'm going to be pretty happy in terms of what's going on right now. Because there's a lot of things we're going to do later that's going to finely tune the precise placement based on structure and some other things, but just kind of get them in the right neighborhood is pretty good. So even as I get going here, again, I will manage and set a location. What do we want now? Brittany, where's your building going to be?
I don't know yet. I'm thinking maybe somewhere cooler.
Where's that?
Somewhere with like more seasonal change from here.
Okay,
Like
so
Virginia.
upper mid. Oh, Virginia? Okay, give me a city in Virginia.
Williamsburg.
A very nice city. Okay, so great. We'll pull its weather profile. In terms of the elevations, let's go ahead and do the same sort of thing over here. I'll go to the elevations and say, hey, give my floor-to-floor height. I'm going to give myself a second floor to work with too, just in case. I'm going to do an offset of 14. Oops, not 41. Let us say, choose that. Excellent. Okay. Kind of back to square one where we were. Go to my floor plan. Okay, so for this building, I don't know. I'm sort of picturing kind of a U-shaped building. Maybe a Z-shaped building. I don't know, maybe a double diamond building. There's all sorts of different shapes of buildings. But let's just go for like a U-shaped building for now. I'm going to choose walls. For my wall type, I'm going to actually leave them generic right now, because later on I'm going to go choose a specific wall type that has very specific thermal properties and exactly what I want. But for just my space planning, I don't want to kind of clutter my thinking right now. I'm just going to go for generic walls. And, based on my preliminary sketches, I think it's going to be about 100 feet long. Whatever's going on over here. So I got some shape. Now, for my shape. Actually, I probably should have been better about this in terms of saying, let me choose all those walls. I wasn't very good. I do like to be good about the whole issue of how tall they are. Don't go unconnected. I'll just bring them up to level 2. A little safer. Okay, in terms of how big that building is going to be, there are some natural dimensions to things. So for example, if I'm thinking about having offices on 2 sides of a hallway, then I got to think about how big is the hallway? 6 feet. How big are the offices on either side? 15 feet deep, something like that. So 15, 15, 6, about 36 feet. Okay, so even in a real rough way, there are some dimensions I'm sort of thinking about. So maybe around 36 feet. Super. This wing over here is looking kind of skinny. That's what I was sort of worried about 24 feet. So at 24 feet, what could that be? It's probably not enough to have offices on both sides. It could have a single hallway either on the inside or the outside and offices on one side. It might just be a big open plan space. Okay, but you know, a little bit of just thinking ahead. Oh, if it was single offices, blah, blah, blah. Okay, with a hallway on one side, what would that be? Let's say it was 20. No, it's actually not too bad. 24 is probably okay there. Width-wise here, it's about 36 there. I guess that's about right. That's not a bad shape for just kind of pulling one out of the air. Okay, so we got a basic shape here. Okay, not too much detail, but let's start subdividing it up a little bit. Okay, so in order to start thinking, we could go off and create rooms, and rooms are kind of nice. Rooms go ahead and find the boundaries of walls and kind of fill on in. But rather than doing rooms, we're going to go one step higher. We're going to call it spaces, because spaces give us just that next level of information. Okay, spaces don't live under the Architecture tab. They live under the Analyze tab. Here they are. And if you choose a space, it says, okay, I'll put a space in there, but there are no tags for spaces currently loaded. Would you like to load one? And the answer almost always is yes. Of course, you'll have to go ahead and find that tag. They live under annotations. And then under annotations, they're considered a mechanical concept. There's a space tag for us right there. Okay, again, that's just the little graphical notation to provide the feedback. But go ahead, drop a space on your building. Notice that it's going to sort of suggest, okay, I found these boundaries, and I'm highlighting in red here. Okay. Kind of drop it on in there. So this is space 1. Let me zoom on in. Now, space 1's kind of uninteresting in here. If you'd like to sort of see a little more information, you can choose the tag and say, why don't you show me the area also? Okay, a little bit better. I got 559.92 square feet. Okay, so again, just choose the tag, and then under the type selector, you can choose whether you want to see the area. At this point, I can't compute the volume, because I don't really have a top and bottom on this thing. But that's a start. Okay, so far so good? Now, the good thing about spaces is spaces have occupancy built right into them. Okay, so if you choose the space by clicking that big old X, and you go on over to a nearby properties palette, you'll see all sorts of stuff which we aren't using just yet in terms of electrical and mechanical properties. You see the area properties, the identity properties. But in here you'll also see a little bit of information about the space type. Now the space type is interesting to me because the space type, is what I've been calling occupancy, is the thing that sort of determines how it's going to be used and what the loading is considered to be. So if I say that for the most part, let's see, what do I got in here? That this is going to be like a, do I have class, do I have residential restrooms, schools, universities, what do I got in here? Classroom. I can say that most of it's a classroom building. Okay. Notice if I choose a classroom building, it says that there's about 16.56 square feet per person. So it's going to give me a certain number of people based on that ratio. That's very different than calling it a dining area. Actually, not a lot different from a dining area. That's only about 15. Dormitory bedrooms, you consume about 105 or 107 square feet if you're in your dormitory room. The bank customer area is 35 per. Conference and meeting rooms about 21 per, but we're just going for classroom and training versus the penitentiary. What's the difference? It's a little bit brighter, I guess, in a normal classroom. Maybe the time, penitentiaries run from 6 to 11, where your typical school building only runs 7 to 9. Who knew? All right, but we can change that. Okay, so we'll choose that. 16.56. So somehow, I think it's going to take my 6,000 square feet, more or less, divide it through by this, and give me a certain number of people in this area. Okay, which is going to be useful, because I'm going to use that information. Okay, I would like to, though, sort of subdivide my building into a couple different areas, because it's not all going to be classroom. It's going to be a couple of different uses. And to do that, what I can do, short of putting a lot of walls in here, is use something called a space separator. A space separator sort of is like a virtual wall. If you put walls in, that'll divide the spaces too. So you can put those in. But if you just want to sort of think very conceptually, just draw yourself some space separators. And I can sort of just wall that part off, and maybe I'll wall this wing off. Then I can create some other spaces and give them slightly different functionalities. So I can say, okay, in this space over here, what do I want you to be? That's going to be an office wing or something like that. Kind of an enclosed office wing. In enclosed offices, we take up an awful lot of space. In this side over here, which is no doubt where the students are going to be, it'll be space, it'll be office, open plan. Okay. Actually, it's interesting. They're about the same. I would think of those being very different. I think there's a fault in that number. So open plan offices tend to have a little bit less space allocated to people because you just sort of sit in your cube. Okay, so I got some different things there. Theoretically now, in each of these different spaces, there are sort of a different number of people projected to be in here. Okay, if we want to take a look at that information, let's think about how we can get at it. Because in the same way we had a mass schedule, we can have a space schedule. And the space schedule can report all that same information. So if you want to get a schedule of this, you'll say View, Schedules, and we'll create a space schedule. Then what can we put in here? Okay, we have all these different fields that are associated with spaces. I'm going to get the name and the number, because those are always kind of good ones to get. How about the room or the space name? I'll put the space number. I like to often put the level that it's on. I can put the area of the space. That's always a good one. How would I put in, oh, there's something that they call the space type. I can go through and put the number of people that'll be in that space. Another space that's kind of a good thing right there is occupiable. That'll become an interesting field later on, because as we're doing consideration of some things, we'll think about whether there are people actually in that room or whether it's just a utility room of some type. Okay? When we have all that, let's take a look. So I have my 3 different spaces. They're all in level 1. Different areas, different space types, different number of people in there. So this is going to start being useful to me, because that whole number of people is going to start affecting are thinking about egress and how we have to put doors and access paths to get people out of the building. It's also going to start to affect how we think about things mechanically, stuff like that. So it all starts out here with this kind of computing these sorts of numbers. Okay, let us do this. Let us break for now. When we come on back, we're going to kind of take these numbers and figure out how we color code and add some information to the drawing. You can also kind of adjust the space tag so it shows some of this information. So your floor plans are jumping off the page with all the information you need to go through and do a proper design. So we'll do that. We'll also finish up today, in case you're leaving a little bit early. The tail end of the video is going to be on just thinking about cores and corridors, thinking about how big is an elevator and a stairway or a restroom, and just how we think about allocating them to the building. So that's going to be the tail end in case you have to leave a little bit early. Okay, let us break.